Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of All Time Replay, the podcast where I relive some of the biggest moments in sports. You want to talk about a big moment in sports? Tonight, I'm going to take you back to November 30th of 2013. Yep, another Thanksgiving weekend. Reason for that is most of the best rivalries you'll find in college football happen on that weekend. Whether it's Clemson, Carolina, Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State against that team up north, it's rivalry weekend, man, and it's when a lot of big games happen. And November November 30th of 2013 was the 78th Iron Bowl between Alabama coming down to the plains at Jordan Hare Stadium to play another Iron Bowl. And let me tell you, the stakes were pretty high for that game. Both teams were in the top five. Uh, both teams competing for. Alabama was just needing to win to propel them to the SEC championship and possibly the BCS championship. Um, and then Auburn was just trying to keep their season going. They only had one loss at this point. A win for them would eliminate Alabama from anything, any kind of contention, and would elevate Auburn to the SEC championship game. So there was a lot on the line. Um, Alabama had great players. Auburn had some great players that at the beginning of the season we didn't know a whole lot about. I mean, who knew about Nick Marshall, Trey Mason? I mean, we knew about Ricardo Lewis and some of these guys, Sammy Coates and them, and of course all the guys that played on defense, But who knew that Nick Marshall was going to have the cannon that he had? Now, before we get too in depth talking about the Iron Bowl that happened November 30th, we have to recap briefly the miracle at Jordan Hare that took place 2 weeks prior, and that was against Georgia. Now, that was another moment, at least for me, of I will never forget where I was when Georgia played Auburn the week before this Iron Bowl in 2013 because I was on patrol that night. I was with the Sumter Police Department in Sumter, South Carolina. I was on patrol. I was on night shift patrol. Uh, and I remember we used to get free Taco Bell if we arrived in our patrol car, parked it, went inside, ate in uniform. So a lot of us would go in there and we'd have our dinner break at Taco Bell and get a free meal. You know what I mean? And that night, Auburn was playing Georgia, and I was busy that night working all kinds of craziness in the city of Sumter. If you know anybody from the city of Sumter, ask them; they will confirm. Nothing good happens in Sumter after dark. But I'm on patrol. I'm at Taco Bell, and my lieutenant and my sergeant just left. We had lunch, or excuse me, dinner together, and I stayed behind for a few minutes. I had gotten there late to begin with, and my lieutenant texts or calls me over the radio and lets me know in police 10 code talk that Georgia had scored and taken the lead, and the game was about to be over. Auburn was going to lose. About a minute later, he calls me back on the radio, and he uses more police jargon over the radio to let me know that the tide has turned and the game was now over. So I'm reaching for my phone. Where's my phone? I got ESPN was, it was around, but it wasn't as advanced as it is today. But I had to reach for my ESPN app and look. And when I saw the highlight, I lost my mind. Now, mind you, that Nick Marshall, who doesn't have a career in the NFL today and didn't have one for very long, he just really didn't pan out. A lot of guys don't pan out at the next level. That's fine. The majority of college football players go on to careers in something other than football, right? But Nick Marshall, when he completed that pass that was tipped by the DBs of Georgia and into the hands of a waiting Ricardo Lewis, who all he had to do was basically just, just raise his hand, kind of like the Tony Nathan play the Dolphins and the Chargers of '81. If anybody remembers what I'm talking about, I mean, basically he just waltzed into the end zone after the ball was tipped. But do you realize that was a 73-yard bomb that Nick Marshall tossed in the air, dude. Like, you anybody remember what Nick Marshall looked like, Auburn's quarterback that year? Like, he wasn't very tall, and he was skinny. He wasn't very strong. So I don't know, 73 yards. Dude had a cannon. So they had just experienced one of the greatest finishes in Auburn University history, man, against well, they're probably their second hated rival in all the SEC, the Georgia Bulldogs. They've been playing them since 1892. The legend of War Eagle dates back to a game against Georgia in 1892 or 1896. So it's a big deal. And it was part of that train that Auburn was on in 2013. They lost one game that season, and it was the fourth game of the year at Baton Rouge in Death Valley. They lost 35-21. Hey, you know what? Okay, they took the loss. Get the hell out of there. I'll just try to make it out of Death Valley alive. Because if you know anything about Death Valley and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at night, you know that those cages have been drinking since like 7:30 in the morning, right? So by the time game time comes around, and during the course of the game, you know what I mean? And win or lose for them Bayou Bengals, them fans don't care. They're gonna let you have it. I've heard stories of opposing teams coming down there and the fans rocking the bus. That's gotta seem a little intimidating, don't you think? But they lost that game, and then they went on a rampage to include victories at Texas A&M, who was led by Johnny Manziel. Talk about where are they now? Oh, Johnny Football. Where is he now? That's a good question. We might have to do a where are they now or where is he now on Johnny Football. What do you think? Huh? Sound a good idea? Let me know. Drop some comments in. But that was a pretty big victory against Manziel and A&M at A&M, man. Like that's not an easy place to play. Just like Jordan Hare, Brian Denny, Sanford Stadium. None of these SEC stadiums are like easy to play at. I mean, oh, Vanderbilt, especially the old Vanderbilt Stadium, it only held like 18,000 people, man. My God. There's more people than that in any street corner in Brooklyn for crying out loud. But really, intense crowd. Now, knowing what happened 2 weeks prior to this Iron Bowl, man, talk about the confidence level in that locker room for Auburn, huh? Gus Malzahn already he ended up leaving Auburn for good with 3 victories in the Iron Bowl against Alabama. And that's a hard thing to do. Now they weren't 3 consecutive, but he had 3 in his tenure there, and that's hard to do to beat Alabama in that game. Okay, they've been playing it and they've been winning more than they've lost for a long, long time. I think the largest streak they had was 9, 10, 9. Ended on the 10th year by Bo Over the Top, 1982. Um, when Senator Tommy Tuberville was the head coach of Auburn football for them years. Hell, Nick Saban's first season in Alabama, Auburn won that Iron Bowl. That was the 6th one in a row. So, you know, there have been, both sides have had their share of victories. Alabama, I'm not an idiot. Okay, don't come at me. Alabama obviously has had their unfair share, okay, if you will, of victories in this game, and of course they are. They're the big school in the state of Alabama. Auburn's not lost on that, okay. But I mean, you talk about always gunning for the best in the state. If they think they're the best in the state, and Auburn always has something to strive to compete against and to whoop their ass up in Tuscaloosa or down in Jordan Hare. Can you tell I'm an Auburn fan? Seriously, folks, this Iron Bowl game, where were you on this night? Did you watch the game? What did you think? I know the ending, pretty much. We're going to get to it. But let's know one thing. Not only was I on patrol the night of the miracle against Georgia, fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm on patrol again. But this time, I'm on patrol from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I had to work out a deal with my lieutenant because my son, who was court ordered to visit with his mother during holidays, it was Thanksgiving week, I had to pick him up. Halfway point between me and her was a little place called Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, about a 5-hour drive one way from me in Sumter, South Carolina. So I had to leave early that morning, drive, pick him up. On the way back, the Iron Bowl started. So we're driving through already Tennessee, a little bit in North Carolina, and we're listening to the game and into South Carolina. And by the time we get into South Carolina, we got like 3 hours, man. Well, about 2 hours. So we're listening to this game, and it's going back and forth. Auburn falls behind, they tie the game, they fall behind again. Fourth quarter, they tie the game. When they tied the game in the fourth quarter, now there were 32 ticks on the Big Mickey on the clock. Okay, 32 ticks. Alabama receives the ball. They run a play. Running back runs out. Game's over. Game's tied. We're going overtime. Right? However, Nick Saban, the GOAT, decided somebody told him, take a look at it. All right. You guys remember the referee coming out after the review, and after further review, the player's foot went out of bounds. There was 1 second on the clock. That's a paraphrase, okay? Not a direct quote, but basically what happened. 1 second back on the clock. He's going to kick a 57-yard field goal with a freshman kicker. And by he, I mean Nick Saban. that was the move, okay? Because you either do a Hail Mary and maybe what happened to Flutie happens at Auburn, for Alabama, and they win the game that way, or you go to overtime, and Auburn's not the best overtime team historically. So, I mean, they've lost quite a few overtime games they probably should have won, but that wasn't a decision that was made by the GOAT. He's the GOAT, man. Listen. Couldn't stand him for 17 seasons because he coached a couple hours away up in Tuscaloosa, man. But he was the greatest college football coach I've ever seen coach football. Period. Because I saw him do it at LSU. Okay. Then I see him go to Miami, and I think if Reggie would have put the weed down and just played football, man, because Reggie had some great seasons. Or excuse me, Ricky Williams. If Ricky Williams would have just put the blunt down and concentrate on football, talented and as fast as Ricky Williams was, man, he was so. Hell, I had a Ricky Williams jersey, man. And he was. I loved Ricky Williams. He was fantastic. I think if he would have just been a little bit better behaved, man, that team was pretty freaking good. They missed the playoffs by one game, man, with a record. I want to say they were 10-6 one season. It might have been 9-7, but they missed the playoffs, losing like the last game of the season against New England. Go figure. But Saban, I thought he did a pretty decent job with the Miami Dolphins. Okay, but we know how everything turned out, right? It just goes to show, man. And he goes to Alabama, and a couple seasons there, boom, they win the national championship, man, and they go and they win a string of national championships, and until the day he left. I mean, my gosh, just an incredible coaching career, man. It really, when you think that he is the best college football freaking coach, man, he could have gone anywhere in the world. He went to Alabama, my God. Like, you imagine if he would have gone to LSU. Well, he was at LSU, but if he would have gone somewhere else, like gone to Clemson or Ohio State, just wherever. I mean, everywhere he went, his teams won, man. That's why wins like this Iron Bowl and the other couple of Iron Bowls that Auburn had in Gus Malzahn's tenure there, that's what makes this game so special, man, because Auburn's not supposed to win this game. They were a 10-point underdog at home at Jordan Hare. There was about 83,000 people here that night, man. You know how electric Jordan Hare gets? I've seen these fools get electric, and by fools, I mean the fans, man. And I've been part of that crowd. 81,000 for a homecoming game against ULM. You know who that is, right? The University of Louisiana Monroe. And there's 81,000 people. When I used to attend the Orange Bowl on Saturdays back in the 80s, an opponent like that, you might 75,000 fit in the Orange Bowl. You'd have 25,000 in the stands. I promise you. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different vibe down in Auburn, Alabama. It really is. And I would love to one day attend an Iron Bowl. I've been to games down there, but back then I was a cop, didn't make a lot of money, and I wanted to make it a father-son trip. Make it a weekend trip. Auburn was only 5 hours away from where I was a police officer at in Charleston, so um, it was a nice time. And you got to be smart, man. And you don't make a lot of money and you're raising a kid and you want to give that kid the best experiences. Hey, we're going to take a road trip, we're going to watch a football game. He didn't know the difference whether ULM or University of Texas. He just knew that we were going to go watch a college football game. SEC, Auburn, his dad's team. Had a great time, but I always had to find the cheapest ticket, and homecoming was the cheapest ticket. One day, I hope to attend an Iron Bowl game. I hope to see an Ohio State Michigan game. My son did his master's program at The Ohio State, right? So I kind of owe them a little bit of love because they threw a lot of money at my son to go to school there. You know what I mean? So God bless them. Go Bucks. OHIO. All right, guys. Kick six. So there's 1 second left on the clock. And Justin and I, at this point in the fourth quarter in the game, uh, we were at we were back home. We had, I survived the road trip, the 10 hours, and then had to work for 8 hours that night. It was wild. And I'm not talking about standing somewhere ringing people up as a cashier. I'm talking about patrolling the streets of something, South Carolina on a Saturday night and a Sunday morning. You know what I mean? That's if you've never done it, try it. But so at this point, I'm home with my son watching the game. Justin's 12 years old. And we're decked out in our Auburn gear and we're watching the game. And there's 1 second left, and holy crap, here we go. The kicker kicks the ball. It looks like it has the distance. We got number 11, Chris Davis Jr., defensive back, pretty fast cat, as you were about to see. Catches the ball 9 yards deep in the end zone and makes a break for the left side of the field. And the rest is history. We were treated to the Auburn broadcast team, which included Stan White. They had to turn his, he was a quarterback back in the day for Auburn. They had to turn his microphone off because Stan White was the guy that was yelling, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" And then my man chimes in, "Auburn's going to win the football game." It was a great moment. At that moment in time, Justin and I were making so much noise. We were being so loud. The TV was so loud in our little place that I'm surprised that they didn't call the sheriff's deputies on us. Now, mind you, I'm a city police officer, but they can tell me to, turn it down. I got to obey the law as well, right? But it was a fun time. It was a great moment, not just for college football, Auburn, the Iron Bowl, the history, the tradition of that game, man. Let me tell you, if you're an Auburn fan or if you're an Alabama fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you live to win the SEC and to win championships, but you always got Thanksgiving weekend circled because you know that whether you're playing at home or you're playing on the plains down in Alabama, in Auburn, Alabama, that your goal is to beat and embarrass Auburn, and it's Auburn's job as well. They're just not as successful. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of All Time Replay, where we really do relive the biggest moments in sports. I like to take us back and rekindle that memory of yours. When we go back to weekends like this and to games like this, and to moments like the miracle on the plains against Georgia, and then to be outdone by kick six, one of the greatest endings in college football history. You can't tell me it's not. You know what I mean? Especially what ended up happening. Like that was a miracle season for Auburn, right? And you have to appreciate 2013, even though they lost the national championship to Florida State. Man, they really did. They won the national championship. They beat Auburn that night in the bowl game, and I understand. Okay, that damn season was pretty magical for Auburn and for Auburn fans because 2012 they finished the season 3-9, 0-8 in SEC play. That means that they lost all their conference games, and the only games they won were against non-conference D2 or tune-up teams, right? That they're supposed to beat. That was it. I was at the police academy while that was going on. That's why I couldn't harm myself. I had a graduation date to attend. I was working really hard towards a career in law enforcement, so I couldn't let Auburn's nonsense, derail my plans. But don't think for a minute that every Sunday morning I didn't, wake up just going, "What is going on?" And then 2013 rolls around. They start off with, a 3-0 record and then travel to Death Valley and Baton Rouge and they suffer their first loss. But after that, they went on a tear. And when they ended up just miraculously kick six, I mean, my God, two big games in a row to end on the final play like that. Auburn thought the sky was the limit. The SEC championship was next. And boy, I'll never forget where I was for that game. I was at my buddy Drew and Kayla's wedding reception. Now, we've asked this for years. They're still married, madly in love with each other. I love this couple to death. They're a wonderful little family. But we always tease them like, why in the hell would you plan your wedding for the same day as the SEC championship game? And we live in the South. Like, why? So, mind you, that everybody at that reception had their phones out watching the game. every time, every time Auburn scored, and it was a lot because it was a high-scoring affair between Auburn and Missouri. Very little defense there. A lot of scoring. Trey Mason set a record for all-purpose yards. Yet over 300 yards. Um, just an incredible game, the SEC title game, which I got to enjoy. And at the same time, I was celebrating two people that to this day, I'm madly in love with them. They're a wonderful couple and dear friends of mine. So, and then they ended up earning a spot in the national championship. And we know that game was an incredible football game. I really thought Auburn was going to pull it off. Like they led the game and they really dominated the game through 3 whole quarters and about 13 minutes and 30 seconds. Or yeah, and you know what I mean? Like it won like the last minute and a half that Florida State went on this draw and they won the game. They won the game, and stunned the hell out of us. But hey, it was a great season, and we really, and by we I mean Auburn fans. I mean, you talk about living some amazing moments in sports, man. I mean, from the win against Georgia to kick six, the SEC title. I mean, it was a great season. There were a lot of great games there. The game, um, I mean, they dominated Arkansas on the road. They dominated Tennessee on the road. 55 hung double nickel in Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. You know how hard that is to do? Neyland Stadium is a pretty freaking loud place in its own right with over 100,000 people, right? A&M with Johnny Football. Um, it didn't matter who it was, with the exception of LSU and Florida State. So they lost to Natty. They won the conference, and they won. Basically against every historical rival they've had, with the exception of one. And it was a really, really good season. It was a really great game. I was so glad to have my little memory. All right, I can't say my part in it because I didn't do anything. Right, I'm just a fan. But boy, just sharing that memory with my son, along with the other memories I shared with my son at Jordan Hare Stadium, and being able to share that with him, and seeing Bo Jackson's name in the Ring of Honor, and all the other guys. You know what I mean? Like it's just a really cool experience. So I hope that many of y'all are enjoying going to games with your sons and daughters as well. And that's part of our American heritage and culture, man. College football, man. We introduced this sport to the world, right? Just like we did with Major League Baseball and basketball. We created these things for the world, and it's a beautiful thing, college football. You can disagree on a lot of things in this world, right? We can disagree on so many things. And today in America and the world, hardly can you get people to agree on many things. But sports is probably, in my opinion, number one or two with music on things that we have available to us that are unifying, right? We can come together regardless of what we think about other things. We can come together and agree that Alabama sucks. I'm just kidding, man. Alabama's a great football program, man. Storied, historic. I get it. Iconic. Screw them. War Eagle. Tune in next time for All Time Replay, where we're going to be covering some rivalries. All right. The first one up is going to be Florida State and Miami, because that's the one that I grew up watching my entire childhood till I moved out of South Florida in 1993. And ever since then, you think I missed that game? No. It's one of the ones I always circle on the calendar. I always want to watch Miami FSU. Brings back a lot of great memories. We're going to talk about that rivalry. Now, it's not the only one we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about coming up Ohio State versus the team up north. We're going to talk about Yankees, Red Sox, Montreal Canadiens, and the Boston Bruins. Talk about heated rivalries. Boston Celtics, LA Lakers, awesome rivalries. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going? I hope you're joining me on this journey, man, because it's a lot of fun. Love talking sports, love talking big sports moments, and most of all, I just love talking to y'all. See you soon.